Okay, so we are on session 4, the last session of this packet, and we're going to go through it. It's reading literary and informational text, basically reading comprehension, the things we've been working on throughout the year. And we're going to go through that, and then we'll be done with the LEAP packet review. And we'll look at moving on to other things. Okay, so for those of you who've stayed with me this whole time and have been working on this, thank you. It's a lot, I know. It's kind of a review of everything that we've tried to work on throughout the year, and this is not normally the way we'd like to go about it, but we're doing the best we can. So this is called, we're on page 74, this is Phyllis's Big Test. One crisp early autumn morning in 1772, Phyllis Wheatley was crossing the Boston cobblestones with a sheaf of papers held tightly under her arm. Her master, John Wheatley, had offered her a ride to her examination, but she preferred to walk. She would make her own way to the public hall where a group of men would decide once and for all, was she or was she not the author of her poems? She had spent recent evenings copying and recopying her poetry in her own neat handwriting. She knew every line, every syllable by heart. She wrapped the pages tightly in a roll, pages of poems that had come from deep inside her and could not be taken away no matter the outcome of today. Still, she had something to prove. Not just because she was young, not just because she was a girl, but because she was a slave and came from Africa. She could remember little about crossing the Atlantic and even less about her African homeland. She was just shedding her front teeth when John Wheatley bought her on the Boston docks as a servant for his wife Susanna. They christened their new slave Phyllis, the name of the slave ship on which she had arrived. Her first winter in Boston was so very cold and awful. She survived only by the kindness of her masters, especially the Wheatley's twins, Nathaniel and Mary, who eagerly shared their lessons with her. They taught her not just English, but Latin and Greek. It was those lessons that led her to where she was today. As she began to read poetry, glorious sonnets had inspired her to try her own hand at writing, and soon she was reciting her poems to the Wheatley's friends. She had stayed up late, night after night, preparing for the examination. The previous evening, her mistress, Susanna, had taken away the candle at midnight and said, "Tomorrow you will look them straight in the eye as you answer all of their questions. Your talent will speak for itself. They will discover the poet we know you to be, and when your book is published, everyone will know." Books had opened up a whole new world to Phyllis as she was taught literature and geography, as she memorized the names of cities and countries, lists of kings and queens, and dates of discoveries. Over time, she had come to appreciate her own time and place, her very own role in the chain of events stretching from past to present. She did not know why she had been brought from Africa to Boston or why she had ended up in the Wheatley home. But she knew that she must now make the most of her opportunities. She must make her voice heard. She was not content to recite her verse in drawing rooms or read one of her poems from a newspaper. She wanted her own book because books would not just last a lifetime. They would be there for her children and her children's children. She hurried by the bookseller's shop that she visited weekly. Today, Phyllis did not have time to step inside and smell the leather bindings. Maybe soon she would visit and find her own name on a volume. But she must first pass the examination to make her dream come true. There would be only 18 gentlemen. She had often entertained as large a crowd in the Wheatley parlor. This group, though, would include the governor, the lieutenant governor, famous ministers, and published poets, all learned men. Many had studied across the river at Harvard and knew much more than she did. Phyllis felt a chill as she neared the building. She started to turn away, but then Susanna Wheatley's words echoed in her head. "Your talent will speak for itself." Phyllis slowly mounted the steps. She would face her examiners, not just for herself or for the Wheatleys, but for her family back in Africa, and for her new brothers and sisters in America, who deserved their own poet. As she turned the handle on the large wooden door, the sunlight framed her entrance. She moved into the hall as all eyes turned toward her. Good day, gentlemen. I am the poet, Phyllis Whitley. No record exists of her examination, but we now know that Phyllis passed with flying colors. The men signed a document testifying to Wheatley's authorship, which appeared in the back of her volume of poems published in 1773. Okay, so this is the only document we have to read, and we'll answer questions 32 through 37, and we will be finished with this. 32, Part A. Which statement best expresses the main ideas of the article? Would it be A, that Phyllis memorized her poetry by copying it and she was fully prepared to pass her exam? Would it be B, Phyllis was grateful to her new family and she wrote poetry to describe her experiences with them? C, Phyllis enjoyed writing poetry and she was encouraged to publish her work? Or D, Phyllis was motivated by literature to express herself and she overcame challenges to become a poet? So which of these options would be the best expresses the main idea of the article? There are several good options, but the best option would be D. It's D because Phyllis is motivated by literature to express herself, because she learns literature through Nathaniel and Mary, and she overcomes challenges to become a poet. She's on her way to this examination with all these men that would be intimidating for anyone. 18 people sitting there, and she's in there going for an examination, but that's a challenge she's overcoming, plus many other challenges that she's overcome, including being a slave. Part B, which two details from the article support the answer to Part A? So they want two details from the article. So we're looking at the fact that she's motivated by literature to express herself and that she overcomes challenges. So if I look at Part B, I see that C says, as she began to read poetry, glorious sonnets had inspired her to try her own hand at writing. So we need to understand what literature is. And we're saying that she's inspired by literature. Which of these shows her reading literature? We have to know what literature is. We have to know it's poetry. We have to know narratives. We have to know sonnets. We have to know what literature is. And so C would be an option, but we also need a challenge. And the one option that shows the challenge the most would be F. So for 32, Part A, the answer is D. She is motivated by literature to express herself and she overcame challenges to become a poet. And for Part B, the answers would be C and F. All right, 33, Part A. In paragraph 19 of Phyllis's big test, what is the meaning of the phrase testifying to? Just because they don't give me any other context, I'm going back to paragraph 19. And it's the last sentence. It says, the men signed a document testifying to Wheatley's authorship, which appeared in the back of her volume of poems published in 1773. It's the last sentence in the article, in the story. So it says, what does it mean testifying to? Would it be offering, exhibiting, confirming, or representing? Are they representing her? No. Did they give her something as an offering? No. Are they putting her on display? Absolutely not. They're confirming that she is who she says she is. So it would be C, confirming. Which sentence from the article helps the reader understand the meaning of the phrase testifying to as is used in paragraph 19? Normally, when we're doing this, we're looking at a sentence after, but testifying to is in the last sentence, so we're going to have to look at some kind of context before. And the obvious answer would be A. She would make her own way to the public hall where a group of men would decide once and for all, was she or was she not the author of her poems? And when they sign the letter, they are testifying, they're confirming that she is the author of her poems. Okay, so we are on question 34. According to the article Phyllis's Big Test, which statement explains Phyllis Wheatley's relationship with her master and his family? A, they treated her as a servant. B, they supported her as a rider. C, they provided her with transportation. Or D, they named her after a ship. Okay, which shows the relationship according to the article? And the answer would be B, they support her as a rider. Which sentence from the article provides support for the answer to part A? So we're looking for support that the family is giving to her as a rider. D would be the only one that shows the family offering their support. It says in part B, it says D, she started to turn away, but then Susanna Wheatley, that's the wife's words echoed in her head, your talent will speak for itself. So they're encouraging her. All right, 35. How does the author use evidence to support the point that Phyllis was determined to succeed? How does the author use evidence? That means how does the author give, when we give evidence, why do we give evidence when we write? We're giving examples. So how does the author use examples to support the idea, the point, the claim, like we do in class, that Phyllis was determined to succeed? By A, showing that she stayed busy reading literature. B, by showing that she worked hard and had future plans. C, by showing that she was independent and had strong opinions. Or D, by showing that she received support and a good education. How does he give examples? Or what examples does he or she give to show that Phyllis was determined to succeed? If you have to, you go back to the text. So if I go back to the text, I would look at what it says about her. Did she read literature? Yes, but does it make an idea that she stayed busy doing it? No. Showing that she worked hard and had future plans, that seems to be indication. By showing that she was independent and had strong opinions, that doesn't seem to be what he or she was showing. D, by showing that she received support and a good education. It did say that, so it's between B or D. How does the author use evidence to support the point that Phyllis was determined to succeed? It would be B, by showing that she worked hard and had future plans. Her plans are to publish her writings, and she wants her own book. She did receive support, and she did have a good education, but the determination, being able to be persistent, we see that through B, her showing that she would work hard and she had those future plans. Which two details from the article support the answer in part A? So we're looking for working hard and future plans. A says had offered her a ride to her examination, but she preferred to walk. There's some determination there. Could not be taken away no matter the outcome. They taught her not just English but Latin and Greek. She stayed up late night after night preparing for the examination. That's working hard again. She wanted her own book because books would not just last a lifetime. That also shows future plans. Hurried by the booksellers, no. So I would say D and E. Let me check. And that's what so D and E. D, she stayed up late night after night preparing for the examination. And E, she wanted her own book because books would not just last a lifetime. It's interesting. A shows some determination, but it's not really, it doesn't go with the overall idea of who Phyllis Wheatley was or what the purpose of the article was. You have to be careful there. All right, question 36, part A. What is the difference between Phyllis's audience at the Wheatley's home and the men at the exam? Okay, so remember she's going to the examination. She's read her poems and before crowds before, but this is different when she's going to the examination. So what's the difference? A, the Wheatley audience reads her poetry before she recites it. Doesn't say that. B, the men at the exam require her to prove herself. That seems to be it, but let's keep looking. C, the Wheatley audience includes highly educated people. Well, the men she's going to see are very educated. D, the men at the exam are greater in number. It said no. It said she had been before greater than 18 people before to recite her poetry. The problem is, or the challenge is, she's going before these men and she has to prove that she's the one who wrote her poems. So for part A, the answer is B. The men at the exam require her to prove herself. Part B, which paragraph from Phyllis's big test provides evidence to support the answer to part A? We don't know that off the top of our heads. They're hoping you're just going to guess. Do not do that. Show them that you're going to go back to the text. So paragraph 11, let's see what that's about. Has nothing to do with proving herself to the men. Paragraph 13. Passing the examination, that might be it. Let's see, paragraph 14. This shows that the men are quite educated. And paragraph 16. Okay, so we're looking to show that the men at the examination require to prove herself. Let's go back to 13. This is an examination, so it would be B for part B on question 36. It would be Let's go back. I'm unsure. Hold on. No, it wouldn't. Okay, so if we look at paragraphs 13 and 16, 13 mentions that Phyllis has to pass the examination and there's going to be 18 men there, but it doesn't say what she has to do. In 16, it says Phyllis slowly mounted the steps. She would face her examiners, not just for herself. So who is examining her? It's the men. So I would say 16. Paragraph 16, I would say D for part B. That one word, examiners. That's what those men are functioning as. Whereas in 13, it talks about going to the examination. But in D, it says examiners. So I would say that. That's what I would put for question 36 for B. So for 36, part A, we're going to say B. And for part B, we're going to say D. All right. Last question, page 81. The article describes how Phyllis was determined to achieve her goals. Select 2 statements that describe her opportunities and 2 that describe her challenges. Write each statement into the correct box. So we're looking at opportunities and challenges. I'm not sure why they have opportunities first and then challenges. Normally we would reverse it, but they do. Okay, so for question 37... we have the statement, she became a slave at a young age. That would be a challenge. They want opportunities first. So we're gonna stick with opportunities. Becoming a slave at a young age. That's not an opportunity. Was able to travel by herself. Could be, but let's keep looking. Was supported by the family. Okay, supported by the family for what? To get educated? Maybe it could be an opportunity. Had to prove she was a poet. That would be a challenge. Was taught lessons by the twins. That could be an opportunity. Could copy her lines of poetry. Doesn't really go anything. Okay, so opportunities. Was able to travel by herself. Was supported by her family and was taught lessons by the twins. So I have 3 that I'm kind of looking at. I need to eliminate 1. We're going to eliminate was able to travel by herself. We're going to go with opportunities. She was supported by her family, and she was taught lessons by the twins. Supported by her families probably doesn't need an explanation, but she was taught lessons by the twins. The twins taught her English. They taught her Greek. They taught her Latin. So she learned these languages, and she learned about literature. She learned about poetry and sonnets, and that influenced her. Those opportunities that she had influenced her to become a poet. So we're going to say that she was supported by her family and she was taught lessons by the twins. Those are the 2 opportunities. Now we go to the challenges. Became a slave at a young age. That would be a horrible challenge. So yes, we put that as a challenge, something that she would have to deal with. And had to prove she was a poet, because people didn't believe that she could be the person who wrote these wonderful poems, and that's the whole point of the story. She's going to prove that she is the poet. So became a slave at a young age and had to prove that she was a poet. Those would be the two challenges. And now we come to the end. So hopefully we went through all parts of the sleep prep packet, and we are ready to take the test if we end up having to do that. After this, I'm going to try to go into teaching some basic ELA skills, and maybe even some of our lessons that I'd like to do if we were in school at this moment. There's some fun things to learn, and so we'll see. I don't know what the future holds. Thank you for everyone who has held in this long through all these sessions. I know this is a lot. It's a lot to go through it myself. I know it's a lot for you to go through it, plus with the work from your other classes. Hope everyone's okay, and we will meet these challenges head on. Be good.